Hello again. So this is the second or the next recording about the elements of the novel, and it focuses this time on characters, one of the components or ingredients of the novel, without which it would be difficult to analyze a novel as you are expected to do in the exam. We have talked about plot before, and now I'm talking about characters. In a novel, character is superior to plot. Yes, meaning that the reason why novels were created, it's not for plots, but for characters and characterization and depiction of characters through which we could send the message. We send the message through characters and through character development more than we do through plots. Plot is just a means, not an end. So character is superior to plot when it comes to novel writing. The inferior novelist tends to be preoccupied with plot, but the superior novelist is concerned with the convolutions of the human personality. Yes, I mean, great novelists were great creators of character, great analysts of character. The plot is a means, not an end, under the stress of artfully selected experience. This is exactly what plot means. Plot is the stress which is artificially, creatively selected experience. And we select experience and we arrange it and make a plot. And through that plot, we hope to clarify, to put forward character. Without character, it was once accepted that there could be no fiction. Without character, there could be no fiction. Exactly. At least this is the classic notion or conception. However, this did not last long. As we said, the novel, properly speaking, started in the early 18th century in Europe, but it may have started long before that. But officially, let's say, it started in the early 18th century in 1720 or so. That is when Henry Fielding or Daniel Defoe published his Robinson Crusoe. That could be the start of the art of fiction of the novel proper. So the novel lived for 2 or 3 centuries, and it had its heyday in the 19th century at the hands of the Victorian novelist Charles Dickens. But soon afterwards, meaning towards the beginning of the 20th century, there was a protest against plot and character. Some people consider that these two were too artificial, and therefore not great art. So they were against it. So in the period since World War II, the creators of what has come to be called French Nouveau Roman, that is a new novel, have deliberately demoted the human element, claiming the right of objects and processes to the writer's and reader's prior attention. I was making reference at the beginning of this slide to the modernist revolution against the Victorian notion of the novel. The novelists started the revolution. The modernists started the revolution. The modernists questioned many of the accepted principles because they were shocked by the First World War, as I said earlier. But the French Nouveau Roman went a step further. The French Nouveau Roman movement were more anarchists than the modernists, actually. They were extremists, actually, and they, instead of revolutionizing the novel, they undermined it. Maybe they were trying to help it and did it more well, this is just a judgment, did it more harm than they meant, because they questioned its very basis, its very raison d'être, that is characterization or sending a message through character development. In fact, they claimed that there was no point in trying to depict character or to develop character. Instead, they said it was just an adventure of language. A novel is just an adventure, an experiment, and a never-ending experiment in language. So the most important thing in language is style, is stylistic variation, stylistic exploration with language, and not psychological creation of characters, as the novel has been doing hitherto, up to then. Thus, in books termed chosistes, this is the term they call them, literally thingist, they make the furniture of a room more important than its human incumbents. I still remember when I was taught a novel by Robert Pinget from the Nouveau Roman movement, and the novel was entitled L'Inquisitoire. It looked like a novel, but it was not. It was just an experiment in language, actually. It was funny. It was amusing to read it. I still remember the teacher trying her best to explain the novel. But it was not an orthodox novel in the usual sense. This may be seen as a transitory protest against the long predominance of character. I think there was a kind of return back to character, or in a milder way. I also remember a novel which I taught in this faculty, Thomas Pynchon's Cry for Lot 49. Yes, characterization is barely developed to the benefit of other things, of other concerns in the novel. Very interesting novel as well, postmodern. Again, the character has taken a severe punishment, actually. So even on the popular level, there have been indications that readers can be held by things as much as by characters. There are other things that could attract readers in a novel, not just human representations. You can represent other things, or you can catch the attention of readers by focusing on other things. For example, people can be attracted by things other than plot and character. In popular fiction, some people are more interested in machines or procedures or organizations that draw the attention. For example, I don't know, in certain thrillers or spy novels, spy fiction, you are more interested in how people use their guns or how people drive their cars. In Ian Fleming's James Bond 007, or how the way he mixes his martini, as Mr. Burgess says. Yeah, people are more interested in certain things, in certain gestures, than they are in characterization. They would say to the novelist, go to hell with your character and characterization. But this is an extremist or a lazy, superficial way of regarding character. This is Casino Royale, one of Ian Fleming's spy novels in the series James Bond 007. But I believe that a true novelist is a character maker. If you cannot really make characters, a novel is not something for you. Characters can be of different types, of course. William Golding had some pre-human characters in his Inheritors, which was published in 1955. They can be animals, like Henry Williamson's Taraka the otter. The otter is a sea animal, or a kind of sea animal, which was published in 1927. Is made as a character, but of course such characters could be allegories for humans or representations of humans, just as Kalila or Dimna or the fables of La Fontaine were. They are about animals, but in fact they are about humans. On the surface they are about animals, but deeper they are about human situations and human character and human nature. And they could be caricatures, as in much of Dickens. Yes, Dickens was a great novelist, no doubt, but he was a caricaturist as well. I mean, many of his characters are caricatures or are exaggerations of certain human traits. Misers or lawyers. So some of his lawyers are really memorable because he was very highly skilled as a caricaturist. But novels also can and always and most often have very complex and predictable entities, as we can find in Tolstoy or Dostoevsky or Henry James. Yes, it's psychological exploration and recreation. The social dimension is also very important, but the psychological one comes first. Society is made of individuals, you know. The Inheritors by William Golding, Pre-Humans. Tarka the Otter by Henry Williamson, for anybody interested to read. That's an otter taking a dive. And this is Jack London's The Call of the Wild, about the animal world. I think what interests a reader in a novel is character. We read novels for character. The reader may be prepared to tolerate the most wanton seeming stylistic tricks and formal difficulties, such as James Joyce's what's his name? And Olivia Plurabelle. Is Finnegan's Wake, his novel Finnegan's Wake, which is a very wanton stylistic experimentation and difficulties, but we're looking for character, even in such a novel. Even in Robert Pinget's L'Inquisitoire, I was trying still to looking for a character, although the author didn't seem to pay a lot of attention to characterization. Right. So in James Joyce's Ulysses, it's a very complex experimentation with style, with many styles. There are as many styles as there are chapters. 18 chapters, 18 different chapters with different styles, and also Finnegan's Wake is which is an extreme writing when it comes to novel writing, like extreme sport. Finnegan's Wake is the extreme sport in fiction writing, which was published in 1939, a few years before the author's death in 1942. And there is also Lawrence Stern's Tristram Shandy, which is a huge novel uh, which is quite experimental too, and the character is unusual. James Joyce's Ulysses. This is James Joyce on the cover of his book, and you can see that the cover is blue. Um, and this is the cover of an earlier edition. This is with CDs, and here Ulysses in its original cover blue. You know that James Joyce's Ulysses was forbidden by the courts, and it was smuggled into the United States in different countries before it became acceptable. And it was referred to as James Joyce's Blue Book. I recommend it, of course, but after you have read many other novels as well, this could be the ultimate of your experience with novels, because I don't want you to be disappointed in James Joyce. Lawrence Stern, The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy. Not as experimental as James Joyce, but quite unusual. So, as I said and repeated, the exploration of the complexity of characters is the most important thing for great novelists. And it is the task of a literary critic to create the value hierarchy of fictional character, placing the complexity of the Shakespearean view of man as found in the novels of Tolstoy and Joseph Conrad. Yes, a novelist's endeavor is an attempt to understand man. He is a helper. A novelist is helping us to understand the complexity of man, the complexity of mankind. And Shakespeare has started. He was a dramatist, yes. I could imagine, or I hope to imagine, that he was a novelist. If he were a novelist, what novels could he have produced for us? But he was Elizabethan, and the novel was not yet born. But yes, this is literature. It's the same. The objective is the same. Understanding the human nature and the human predicament. These two things are the object of literature, to help us understand human nature and the human predicament. Tolstoy is referred to very often. He's a giant. He wrote his books in Russian, but they have been translated in most world languages, including English, French, and Arabic, and Spanish, etc. Tolstoy is a must-see, is a must-read. And so is Joseph Conrad. Joseph Conrad is a Pole. He's from Poland, who spoke Polish, as I have always explained. He spoke Polish language. He was brought up for some time in Russia when his parents died, and he was taken by his uncle to Russia. So he spoke Russian. But when he reached the age of 19, he ran to the sea, and he became a seaman in the French Navy, French merchant navy, in the city of Marseille, which presumably made him have to learn French. So that's the third language or fourth. And then when he moved to work on British ships, the British Merchant Navy, he learned English, and he learned it so well by himself, not only to communicate but to write some of the best English language novels. He's one of my favorites. So I have always put this man as a model for my students and for myself when it comes to learning languages. If there is a will, there is a way to learn languages, not only to master them, but to become a great writer in such languages. It is the task of a literary critic, as we said, to put forward the importance and complexity of characters. above creations that may be no more than simple personifications of some single characteristic, like some of those by Dickens. So a novelist should be more than a caricaturist. He should aspire higher than just caricature or than just personifying certain characteristics or developing them or illustrating them. I'm not criticizing Dickens. I'm just trying to outline the objectives and tasks of novelists. This is my hero, one of my heroes, Joseph Conrad, and one of his best novels, Heart of Darkness. He wrote many novels, including Lord Jim, Nostromo, The Secret Agent, Almayer's Folly, The Nigger of the Narcissus, and many more. But these are his best. Heart of Darkness is one of his best. It's about a journey into the heart of Africa on a ship like the one you can see in the cover here, on a merchant ship, a small ship. Marlowe, the narrator of the story, has to undertake a mission in the Congo, but he discovers lots of atrocities committed by European colonialists, the Belgians first, and the German Mr. Kurt. It is an exploration of the extent to which human evil can reach. It's pessimistic. It's a dark novel indeed, but it enlightens us about human nature as no author has done before. Very original, very powerful. I recommend. By the way, it's a short novel, just 95 pages, but it is very terse, it is very dense, it is concentrated, it is, it is focused, concentrated, compact. You know, some great novelists specialized in simple, memorable cartoon characters. As I said, Dickens in his Mr. Micawber and his Jeeves Uriah Heep, and did not care to depict the wider view of personality. I think Charles Dickens, when he wrote his novels in the 19th century, many of them were written serially for newspapers. So he catered for a kind of readership. So we should not expect from a novelist or from an artist to do something that he was not meant to do. I mean, لكل كاتب بيئته. الكاتب يكتب حسب بيئته. Dickens wrote for his 19th century Victorian audience, who were readership of newspapers, and he wrote to entertain them more than anything else. Not the wider view of personality in which characters seem to engulf the reader. Yes, I mean, when you read some of the great novels, you are eager to know more and more in every turn of the page about the character. We are engulfed, we are attracted, we are, submerged in the reading of the story, and we are very, very much concerned. Subscribed to by the great novelists of France and Russia. But there are some British novelists who did exactly that. The Nouveau Roman that we mentioned a while ago and its exponents reject entirely the romantic view of character. Yeah, we could say that it's a romantic view, that character is a highly valued components of the novel. The whole nature of human identity remains in doubt. So they revolutionized everything, and they said, "What is identity anyway?" Well, the Nouveau Roman or the absurdist movement, if you take, for example, the writer of En attendant Godot, Waiting for Godot, it's the same. I mean, he does not have any regard for human identity uh, or development of character. Like the French exponents of the Nouveau Roman, Alain Robbe-Grillet and Nathalie Sarraute, as well as many others, are in effect rejecting purely romantic view of character. I tend to prefer that romantic view because I'm a specialist of the novel, and I like novels to revolve around characters. I might enjoy experimentation. I'm willing to enjoy stylistic and linguistic experimentation, but I believe psychology is the gist of novel writing and novel objective. This is Alain Robbe-Grillet. He's dead now, I think. One of his novels is entitled Les Gommes. He would write about robbers rather than about human beings. Could be symbolic as well. And this is Nathalie Sarraute, and her novel, and one of her novels, which is entitled Tropisme. Yes, we agree to the objection of these rebels, these Nouveau Roman rebels and postmodern rebels. Character is artificial, but let's not forget the novel is an art, so it works with artifice. We should not be idealists. We should not be purists. We should allow the novelist some freedom to do his job. We should let him do his job, his or her job. We should let a novelist do his or her job and not expect him to do something impossible. There is nothing perfect in humanity or in this world. This view is imposed the author's image of himself, the only human image he properly possessed on the rest of the human world. Yeah, this is the argument of those who criticize character. So they denounce some sort of narcissism on the part of the novelist. For the unsophisticated reader of fiction, any created personage with a firm positive position in time, space, and the most superficial parts of behavioral or even sartorial attributes will be taken from a character. Yes, why it's artificial, it's true. Sartorial, the adjective sartorial means related to clothes. I remember the person who taught me this for the first time. Behavioral or even sartorial attributes will be taken for a character. It is true, so much so that we could take scarecrows for characters, if you understand what I mean. The average reader oversimplifies character even in real life. And well, let's face it, it's true. We judge characters in the same way we do in novels as we do in real life. In real life, we oversimplify people, even our friends. We reduce them to a few sems, as Roland Barthes would say, a few characteristics, a few features, psychological features. Yeah, well, we have a tendency to oversimplify. So, what is the problem? We always do it. We are in the habit of doing it. Uh, Though the critic may regard it as heretical, this tendency to accept a character is in conformity with the usage of real life. So, what is the problem? The average person has at least a suspicion of his own complexity. Yeah, we think we are simple about when we think about ourselves. We oversimplify even ourselves. Oh my God! We should go to uh, to a shrink to a psychoanalyst, and we shall see how complex we are. Uh, but we see the rest of the world as composed of much simpler entities. Yes, there is some truth in this. This is not my idea, it's the idea of Anthony Burgess, but I think it's true, and I agree entirely. The need to create memorable character. If you are a novelist and if you want to be a successful novelist, or if you want to be remembered by history as Shakespeare was remembered, as the other novelists were remembered, you need to create memorable characters. You need to produce them in a lively manner. You need to depict them in a vivid manner. You need to use language in a special way as to make your characters convincing and persuasive. The result is that novels whose characters are created out of the author's own introspection are frequently rejected as not true to life. Yes, when a novelist creates characters which resemble himself too much, they may be rejected. I don't know if this is the case of Joyce himself. Well, Joyce took some distance from Leopold Bloom and Stephen Dedalus. He is, and it's an introspection of himself. A portrait of the artist as a young man is a portrait of James Joyce himself. But I think Joyce was a master indeed. He could take a distance even from himself, and he could objectify himself and give us a beautiful novel that is talking about Stephen Dedalus, but in fact it is talking about James Joyce himself. It's a Bildungsroman. It is biographical to a great extent. But again, let's face it. Many novels are biographical in a way or another. Joseph Conrad's novels about the sea, about what's the difference between Marlowe and Joseph Conrad. I mean, it's very biographical. But again, these are great artists, and they could achieve that distance between themselves and their characters. But both the higher and the lower orders of the novel, that is, high quality novels and low quality novels, might agree in condemning a lack of memorability in the personages of a work of fiction, a failure on the part of the author to seem to add to the reader's stock of remembered friends and acquaintances. Yes, when we read novels, we're looking for friends. We're looking for memorable characters. I think Lord Jim is a friend of mine. I think Hamlet is a friend of mine. What else? Many of the heroes I think Jay Gatsby is a friend of mine too. I mean, I like these people. I understand them. I sympathize with them. I identify with them. I feel sorry for what happens to them when they are in trouble, and I feel happy for their successes, and I feel saddened by their tragedy. Yeah, most of them are tragic. Jay Gatsby dies in the end. Lord Jim dies in the end, and so on and so forth. The fictional characters that remind us of real life characters are the ones most appreciated in novels. I mean, fiction, although it is called fiction, or the novel, um, is a make-believe kind of art. It is an imitation of reality. We know it's artificial. It's an imitation of reality, and the closest to real life it is, the better. The closer to reality, the better. The more realistic fiction is, the better. Characters that seem on recollection to have a life outside the bounds of the book that contain them are usually the ones that earn their creators the most regard. Yes, I read Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind a long time ago. I have not reread it ever since. I watched the film later. I read it when I was an adolescent in high school, and its characters are still memorable, are in my mind ever since, um, uh, which means that they have impacted my imagination so much with an indelible hallmark, with an indelible stamp that I will never forget. So these characters are memorable, and many of the characters in great novels are become some of your friends or some of acquaintances, or they can crop up whenever a situation in real life faces you. So they become part of your culture, part of your imaginary environment or real life environment. Depth of psychological penetration, the ability to make a character real as oneself, seems to be no criterion of fictional talent. Yes, again, the opposite side. Still, nevertheless, that's not the objective of all novelists. Well, let me stop there. I finished this section about characters, and I will record another one about setting and another one about point of view. I hope you enjoy these. You are enjoying these sessions. I hope I'm not boring you too much, but I'm not being apologetic. I think this is quite interesting and useful for you in the analysis of novels to come, and especially The Old Man and the Sea. Thank you.